Hello again, and welcome to the 5th session of the generations alive today. The first 4 generations include 14 years when the outer planets occupied specific signs and marked generations, starting in 1927 and proceeding through about 1984. 1984 has an ominous ring to it due to the book by George Orwell called 1984. It was a fictional book describing the slavery of the human race. Many people think that it isn't fiction, but a recipe for human domination. Pluto in Scorpio marks the release of the beast from the bottomless pit. The beast was the element Earth, Taurus, and greed. Generation Y encompasses the years from 1984 to 1998. Pluto slips into Scorpio and Neptune occupies Capricorn, while Uranus is in Sagittarius and then the second half in Capricorn. These planets are bunching together. This generation starts with first of many conjunctions of the heavy hitters in Capricorn, starting with Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 1989. Saturn reigns on any yang illusion in Capricorn. What was observed was the disillusionment of the world leaders. It was becoming more and more obvious that they were owned by the mega corporations. Money ruled the world. Saturn then conjuncts Neptune, and finally in 1993, Uranus conjuncts Neptune. Since these planets move slowly, these 7-year generation will have this conjunction. The forces of darkness and communism continued to collapse in Russia. The Berlin Wall, a symbol of the Iron Curtain, came tumbling down, freeing many within this curtain. For the first time in history, a government crumbled from the top down. In their quest to keep up the military spending with the U.S., their economy collapsed and people began starving again in the country. This ended the years of duality between the forces of fire in the west, forces of ice in the east. The scene switches to one against the many as the U.S. assumes the role of the major power against the mobs that want to take it down, or so the conservatives teach in their campaign to keep the money flowing into the military budget. Economic hitmen were sent out to the third world countries to determine if money could help destabilize the country. This would allow them to come in and further destabilize it so as to steal their resources. In the process, the U.S. was establishing bases all over the world so as to keep wars going. The U.S. under Reagan and later Bush made illegal deals, but by now the citizens were so numb with the quest for money, amusements, and drugs that they no longer cared. Their government could do whatever it wanted. The government made questionable decisions regarding the invasions of individuals at Ruby Ridge and specifically at Waco in the cult of Branch Davidian. In retaliation, the Oklahoma City bombing was an act of terrorism committed by a white man that showed how one person could change the world. This act cemented a lot of fear into the people, demonstrating how vulnerable we are. These years saw a rapid decline in morality as greed was good and there was no limit to do anything to get it. It reflected in the entertainment business where the shows like the Jerry Springer was a daytime hit. The leader of the free world made the proclamation that blowjobs was not an act of sex. A new music entered the mainstream during that time, rap. Words are spoken with an occasional chorus of music followed by hard drumming and more words. This music supports the emerging beast wrapped in anger and hate and marks a means to split the generation. The personal computer became a reality and forever changed the world. It made businesses more efficient, creating an economic boom. When the internet became a reality, it opened the doors of communications around the world. The computer can now be Mercury, replacing the lower mind. How may I serve? I can input data, process it, and send it to the World Wide Web. The computer became a source of addiction. Now I don't have to think. I got Google. Nobody knows to what extent the computer will change societies. New businesses sprung up, replacing the old ones, as young people became billionaires almost overnight. The ways to manipulate and leverage money was changing the way business was run. The computer offered freedom for the individual as never been observed in human history. However, the presence of the computer in the hands of the controllers made way for an Orwellian future. As with all changes in reality, it can go both ways, but you can never go back. Uranus was waking, or rather shaking up the sign of Sagittarius and our faith in something. Many spiritual institutions were shaken to the core. The New Age needed a serious patch on the one-sided vision of always being positive. The flower child and now the New Age were going through a midlife crisis. For those that could look at negativity with detachment made a quantum jump towards choiceless awareness. Uranus in Sagittarius offers a peak, a visit to the gods, a Satori experience. The peak offers a direction to work towards when you come down. Whatever a person is regarding the position on the elevator will determine how fast it is moving up or down. The path to stillness is a path to the eye of the hurricane. The hurricane is schizophrenia, a Uranus disease. Harmonic convergence in 1987 marked a demarcation between heaven and hell according to the Mayan calendar and a 25-year countdown to the end of a 5,000 years calendar in December 2012. That date will mark the end of the next generation. I call the millennium. Most religions have a bad ending if you don't join their club. The popular one in the West is Armageddon. Their teaching is that this world belongs to the devil and only salvation is the pie in the sky. Many prophecies were coming to light when man's technological powers showed him to discover Pluto. The creation of Israel's first conjunction of Saturn-Pluto marks the generation, the flower child, that will witness the end of time. The second Saturn-Pluto conjunction marks the release of the beast, greed for money, and Taurus. Recall, Taurus deals with innocence of duality. Without duality and the inability to see the opposite locks the Taurus into a consumer role that knows no limits. The layer of Venus or attraction becomes the goal of all desire. The growth of innocence spills over into religion and other institutions, allow a denial of what is actually happening. Denial was becoming mainstream, particularly amongst the conservatives. Individuals born in this cycle will have Scorpio and Sagittarius energy being a big influence on all their scripts. Recall, when Scorpio goes overboard, it becomes Medusa with hissing intruders announcing their presence. To the children, their parents have hissing snakes warning them not to listen. Pluto and Scorpio will see these individuals going to the max regarding death experiences, including sex. Sex then becomes an athletic event. At an early age, they were given the pleasures of Venus, leading to addictions for more. For them, anything smacking of authority and their philosophy were denied, leaving them sitting ducks to the illusions and addictive powers of Venus. Sugar, the gift of Venus, is the true gateway drug that led these children down a dark path to an addiction resulting in health concerns. Drugs and sex attraction made them burnouts at a very young age. The lack of consistent authority left holes in their development. However, for a few, a new sense of freedom allowed new philosophy. To them, the beast emerged, wrapped in a layer of Venus attraction. In the presence of any wisdom coming from authority, it was discounted. Recall, their parents are the Gothics, entrenched and tended to be over-nurturers. Their children had little guidance regarding bringing up the beast. They heard hissing snakes whenever in the presence of anyone using any confrontation. Recall, Scorpio uses acid to remove a layer of decayed skin to expose new layers. The children resist such healing, leaving a layer that becomes the beast. Neptune and Saturn in the signs of the father and authority, Capricorn, promises many lessons for both the parent and the child. The importance of the Sagittarius script features a need for Pisces and dreams and aspirations to set a new course. They will experience feeling of discontent, preventing them from hanging out with the gods. What they lose is Capricorn on the cusp of the second house and responsibility. They lack control when in fear. Their resistance to nurturing keeps them in fear and increases the area of innocence or ignorance, leading to the dumbing down of the collective unconscious. Their increased reliance on the computer kept them from using their own mind and increased their dumbing down. They were being molded into individuals with understanding of their little area of knowledge, but not encouraged to think outside the box. This makes the perfect citizen in an Orwellian reality. The years 1991 to 1998 saw the U.S. turn its imperialistic urge into the Middle East, Iraq being their first target. Their leader, Hussein, was a patsy that invaded his neighbor. He had to be punished. Iraq didn't have a chance. However, the U.S. didn't finish the job because it would give them opportunity to do it again in 10 years, in round 2. Instead, they quarantined the country, putting the pressure on its economy. For the next 10 years, they accused them of having weapons of mass destruction. The United States was anything but united. The government was in gridlock, so nothing but money for defense was approved. The Republican Party became exclusively conservative and had pretty much lasting power, particularly in the Senate. Clinton, a Democrat in name only, provided a so-called opposite to the conservatives. There was little social service improvements as money went to the rich, the military, and the power. More and more people were slipping into poverty as jobs went overseas. The U.S. became Disneyland for the movers and shakers all over the world. There was no more industry, so the only work available was service to the money people. These times witnessed a major conjunction in Capricorn. Uranus and Neptune, just as with the Uranus-Pluto in the 60s, where it split the population into liberal and conservative, this conjunction split the world into what constitutes Capricorn and the police. Capricorn is the father and anything to do with authority. Cronus and Saturn castrates Uranus, removing him from everything except his intuition. Neptune's behavior in the sign has been to start the cycle of plus-minus illusion of the energy. Aspects, etc. determines where you are within that cycle. The combination would produce a split between good and bad cops. Roughly half the masses choose the good guy cops, and the other half chooses its opposite. Mass amounts of money went to the victor, who created the illusion and attracted the greatest number of people, taking an interest. Each side visualized the world without the other. Children born in these times will have difficulties dealing with Saturn and authority. They will see a switching of the good-bad cop. By police, I mean more than just the local police. I mean all those in position of leaderships. The true Capricorn energy should be to respond. The Capricorn cop would paint a picture to the person causing a potential harm when the outcome would be. The person now has a choice knowing the consequences. Until a populace learns this and demands a change, there would be increasing police brutality. The lines are drawn on what is a good bad cop. Such a combination allows everybody to have a reality free of their enemies. They willingly put on blinders so as not to see the rest. Such energy leads to the creation of gangs or isms based on what constitutes law and the police. Neptune in the crumbling society and replacing them with gangs. Depending on karma determines the experience that the young children would have. For many, being in the wrong neighborhood could be life-threatening. Children born these times witness a dramatic increase in the cost of living, making it nearly impossible for them to leave their homes. Rent and college tuition went out of sight while wages remained unchanged, leading to an impossible situation. The older generations have condemned them for being lazy and without any creative direction. The X generation was experienced teenage years witnessing firsthand a crumbling of society. As teenagers, they experienced a dumbing down of high school education that had holes in subjects like geography, among others. They accumulated serious student debt. This Gothic generation had their Saturn return and striving to express their individuality. These were the parents to Generation Y, and many were ill-equipped, being over-nurtured themselves, giving the illusion of Capricorn responsibility to the children. The flower child was experienced midlife crisis, while many became street people begging for spare change. Others were questioning their yuppie reality. The depression babies were approaching retirement and aging and having their second Saturn return. Generation Y inherited a world in decline. They saw people doing whatever it takes to get money, as the difference between the rich and poor was increasing exponentially. The next generation, I call the millennials, started 1998 to 2012 and the end of time. Uranus explores Aquarius and later Pisces, while Neptune goes into Aquarius, while Pluto inhabits Sagittarius. Please join me, and until then, be happy.